Guess what, y'all? We have an interview with Dr. Beth Haransky-Beck. We are so excited. This is our first author interview on Verve+Vision. If you haven't gone out and gotten the book and made sure that you have your copy for our book club, go ahead and do that. But it's okay. We're going to have notes at the book club. We're going to get into some of the deets and make sure that you're walking away with some exercises at minimum. But we encourage you to get she is now a best-selling author on Balboa Press. So welcome, 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 Elisa.
Thank you, Monifa. Thank you, Susie. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited to be your first author interview.
Isn't it exciting?
This is so the perfect place to start. It's so aligned with everything we have talked about and explored to this point in Verve and Vision, Sovereign Spirits Mastering Midlife. It is so integrative, and I know my mind was blown, and I can't wait to share with people how they can transform the complete way that they see and they experience vision.
Absolutely. And it was an absolute pleasure to read. It reminds you to take a break every now and again, and which I need the reminder of, and it's starting to build that habit even throughout my day. So if that was your purpose, accomplished. All right. And yeah, and I found myself reading like I would when I was a child. You remember when you were a kid and you would just like roll to the next position, and then you would just kind of flop on your back, and then it would go over your head, and then it would, that's what the way I was reading this book the other day.
That's awesome. That is so beautiful. That is so wonderful to hear.
It was so fun. I was like, why don't I move more when I read? I was like, oh yeah, because it's always on my device now. And now I'm usually multitasking and all the things, right? But it was so much fun for me to go back in time. Yes. So we have several questions for you. I'm not sure we'll get to everything, but we are so excited to have you here. And Susie, you want to start with your first question?
Okay. So I know so many questions. First, for those who don't have the privilege of knowing you yet, Dr. Beth Haransky-Beck. Elisa, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you came to this incredible job title that you carry?
What title is that, Susie?
Neurodevelopmental optometrist. Do I have it almost right? Functional optometry?
Yeah, and sometimes I add in there functional behavioral and vision therapist and spiritual nutrition counselor and somatic movement educator therapist and embodied vision yoga teacher. And so I wear a lot of hats. And if you remember, I mentioned that in the book. But really, when it comes down to it, a robin just perched on the banister over there on the rail. Just as I said that, really what it comes down to is just connection with self and other. And so I kind of usually take off, I wore my white jacket for effect here, but it's a sweatshirt really. Who are we and what are we? So how did I come here? How did I arrive? And how did I wind up putting out this, what I consider a masterpiece? I'm 100% biased. That's my disclaimer. But the reason that I wrote the book is because of my excitement at being a multidimensional being and being more and more fully present in what I'm meant to do and be here. And then came the understanding that, hey, I need to share this, what I've learned, with the world in a simple, straightforward, easy to read treatise, if you will, combining what my editor, bless her heart, said should be 5 books. I needed to put it out as one book because honestly, I don't need 5 books. Nobody needs 5 books. Maybe nobody needs any books once they read my book. Again, there comes my bias. But the idea is we're all here as individuals for a very specific purpose. And it has to do not just with our schooling, not just with the family, the genetic family we were raised in, not just with our soul family, not just with our schooling, um, not just with the government, not just what we think is true, but with all of it combined and interwoven. And so I wrote the book um, because I understand now in my elder years, that my young elder years, I should say, that um, it's exciting to be alive. And it actually gets more and more exciting, not only for me, but it can be more exciting for you too, because of the depth and breadth of experience that you have had, that each of us have had. So
Yes.
maybe that's a long answer to a short question.
Well, I think that's kind of the job of most polymaths is to find enough names to represent everything they are. um, but I want to ask also about, like, specifically because I know that it felt good to move around and to read and all of that. But also in your book, you talk about from the very beginning, start talking about the importance of the cognitive development in as a baby crawling on the floor and crawling. And I was wondering, like, specifically what happens in the eyes that is so necessary. But I know that that may be part of what's going on with me because my mom was very much, she didn't like us to be dirty and all that thing. Not as bad as some, but still, we weren't crawling on the floor. My father didn't like us to crawl. He thought it would hurt our knees.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Wow.
yeah.
So yeah, I can talk about that, and that comes in the movement section of my book. My book, Enlivening Consciousness, Deepening Your Journey Through Vision, Movement, Nutrition, Nature, and Spirit. The movement section and chapters is the second section of the book, though it could have been the first, right? Um, but I I really emphasize in the book our journey, not only in utero, how did our mother move, but once we're out in the new world outside of the womb, what are we allowed to do? And Monifa, it wasn't just your mom and dad. It's an epidemic now of parents, caregivers not allowing children, babies, particularly in the first year of life, to be on the ground and to be connected to Mother Earth, Mama Gaia, um, and to move through the developmental movement patterns that underlie vision development. There's a whole epidemic of um, devices that are used, bouncers, walkers, swings, you name it, car seats, high chairs that children are confined to, right? And adults want children to sit up right away or be in verticality. And we're not designed to develop that way. Our visual systems develop in the first year of life through our movement in contact with the ground. And what do I mean by that? If you look at a baby, um, on the ground, either on their belly or their side or their back, you can notice how connected and fluid they are and how much they kind of be, how much they're part of the surface, and how their skin, if they're allowed to be without clothing, how their naked skin communicates, how the receptors in the many layers of skin learn, just like, if you can imagine amoeba, a little, amoeba or a paramecium, little bacteria kind of moving, we are that as well. And so it's really important for babies, if there are any new parents watching this or any people who are thinking of becoming parents, allow your child, encourage your child to be on their stomach, their sides, their back, place them on your body, and get down on the floor with them. Look at them at eye level, directly across from them, and create the basis of communication.
So is it like more about just the being connected with the environment and how the eyes, because I remember part of the book where you're like try to leading your movement with your eyes. And is it like kind of more natural to do it that way, where you let your eyes tell you where you're going next, or h- how do you think of it?
So, one way to think of it would be that vision, eyesight, directs movement. Um, we see something, the baby sees something, and then goes there.
Mhm.
The baby can see, a person can see generally a lot further than they can smell or taste or touch. And there are 7 of the 12 cranial nerves that are directly or indirectly related to the visual system. Really, they're all related and interconnected, intertwined. But the third, fourth, and sixth cranial nerve control eye movement. So, what what are we doing? How are we perceiving?
Mhm.
And then how are we acting? One of my esteemed colleagues wrote a book called See It, Say It, Do It. How do we move through space? How do we enter?
Mhm.
And so when we're on our bellies, we have the opportunity to develop our neck supporting head reflex. If we're always put in a vertical position as a baby, we're not developing that. When we're on our belly, we develop trunk tone, the tone of our muscles, of our neuromuscular system. And the same goes for on our back. We develop the integration to be able to start to coordinate our eyeball movement. And
Wow.
we develop our strong sense of verticality from head to tail. And then we start to develop our laterality by just these gentle movements that you'll see babies doing, yielding and pressing into the earth with their hands, their bellies, their torsos, their pelvis, their legs. You'll see babies rocking gently back and forth. They are using the groundedness connection of their bodies to the earth to form their understanding of what then becomes um, midline, complete midline awareness, and then the ability to cross the midline. And the finest muscles in the body are the eye muscles. And crossing midline, meaning you can do it now. Look away from the screen. I'm kind of looking down because I have my phone propped, but you can look through the screen, look to the left, look to the right, but just notice if you can limit your head movement, which I don't recommend usually, but in this case, if you look to the left, look to the right just with your eyes, you've crossed your midline. Was that easy to do? Was that tricky? Did you feel your eyes jump? It's very subtle. But all of this development is happening in the first year of life during the time that children are in full contact with the earth on all surfaces of their body. And then when they become, they start to creep and pull themselves along the ground. And then when they push up into crawling and they feel the sensation of their knees and lower limbs on the surface of the ground, the contralateral or cross body patterns that are developing in the gross motor system underlie binocular vision and crossing the midline in tracking for reading and writing and functioning.
That's so cool.
And I have to say, as and we are all such diverse, in the things that we do, we bring a lot to the table. And I love to work as a stress coach, and I am a body worker and massage therapist. And so I know from working on people that one of the core body imbalance patterns comes from sitting at a desk with our arms forward. And what you're making me think of, my light bulb moment here, is as a baby, when we push up off the floor, we're strengthening our backs. And sitting at a desk with our arm forward, our back is getting so weak and stretched, and our front body is so tight. And we can't break out. We don't have that strength to balance the tightness that we are creating in the front of the body. And so the movement exercises that you describe in the book, and you're so wonderful and give that inspiration and say it's never too late to go back and recultivate these patterns. And I told you before we started recording, I've been enjoying rolling around on the floor, and that's exactly it. You give us the yoga exercises that replicate this: baby cobra and moving into cobra, and lizard and swimming on the floor, and all this contralateral movement that is like what our bodies have been aching to come back to.
Right. And it's
So true.
simple and it's profound.
Yes, it really is. It just brings. It's so interesting how, like, kind of doing this awareness work, and especially somatic awareness work, how it just brings you into more aliveness, right? Which is literally the name of the book, y'all. Enlivening. I did that on accident. Um, so, but it's so true. It's so true. Like, it was like so joyous to combine two of my favorite things, right? And to just feel how my body was making adjustments because it wasn't used to doing all this work anymore, and how much it wanted to stretch a little bit more this way and that way. And and it was just really a pleasure, really it was.
I'm
And yeah,
so
and that, and go ahead.
Monifa, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because my editor, again, my dear editor, Robin Quinn, kept telling me to simplify and take out duplication, repetition in the book. I had so many rest breaks in there: vision rest breaks, movement rest breaks. I should have put a singing rest break in there. I didn't even think of that, but now I'm thinking of it. I'll teach that in my course. Maybe you'll come in as a guest speaker. I had mentioned earlier, I'm teaching a 3-month course offering in this fall, September or October, November, and December. But my editor finally talked me into taking out a lot of those. And now that's why I'm so happy to hear you say, wow, you got it, even with what I consider just a few reminders, because I also threaded it through the language of the book. Perhaps it became the music of the book, even though I don't really talk. I talk about vision as rhythm, I think, but not very much. But I
Yeah,
hope
you do.
that came through as the rhythm of the writing, which I intended to be simple and accessible to everybody who wants an introduction to this way of being. And I have to be honest, I'm reading my book now because it looks a lot different than the manuscript did. And I'm really enjoying it. Every time I pick it up, I'm like, wow, this is a good little section over there. you
I
know,
was going to see if you could see that line. uh, that you wrote on the sidebar is vision is the emergent, vision is movement, right? And it is, it's why I adore your work, because it's exactly how I think of voice. It's exactly how I think of voice. And when you say that, like, it means so many different things to me. It's to me, emergent is the emerging consciousness as the movement of being, right? Like, and then it's like movement is what we're here for, right? And then the allowing of consciousness through the experiences of movement. And yeah, it's just so profound to me. I don't know how many people are with me in that, but like
Well,
it's so profound.
that's really exciting for me because we
Yeah.
come from different um, disciplines theoretically, but in reality, we're coming at it from the same understanding. There was an optometrist in the early part of the last century named Skeffington, and he developed with others this developmental functional behavioral approach. And he talked about vision as the emergent, but it includes everything that you're talking about, Monifa. Um,
Mm.
because what is speech? What is sound? What are we doing with our mouths? It's not, our mouths are just the vessel, just like our eyeballs. It's not really about that, although we do need our mouths to eat, you know. But the thought, the cognition, the cognitive aspect that's behind it. Oh, I'm a baby on my belly, and my mommy or daddy or caregivers on their belly looking at me straight in the eye, and they've got a ball, and I want that ball. How am I going to get there? It's a thinking, speaking process, really. You know, and then we could go in a real down a real rabbit hole talking about people that, you know, who subvocalizes, what does that mean, what part of the brain are we using for that. There's Skeffington had 4 circles, and I think auditory was one of the circles, you know, but vision was in the center as the emergent. Well, he was an optometrist, you know, and you know, in our field we talk about vision as the dominant sense, even if you're a blind person, even
Mm.
if you're a blind, 100% blind with no eyeballs, if you've got optic nerves and you've got the middle part of your visual system in the middle of your brain, and you've got your occipital cortex in the back of your brain, and you've got all these different pieces, and you've got the connection to your spinal cord, your whole nervous system, you have vision because you can function cognitively, proprioceptively, auditorily, you know.
So, what I'd love to explore too is you share in the book that character and personality are really indicative of visual. I don't know if acuity is the right word, but I'd love to hear more about how you see that as you're perhaps meeting a patient for the first time and you're taking in the entire person, because that's what functional medicine does. Is suddenly we get out of that tunnel vision and we it's so funny how many, things come back to vision, right? It's so integrated in our lexicon. How do you see that showing up in people?
So when I examine somebody and they're getting ready to come into the office, I will often greet them in the reception area. And I'm looking at their posture, I'm looking at their poise, I'm looking at their gait, I'm looking at if they're symmetrical or asymmetrical, I'm looking if their torso is turned, I'm looking at their eyes to see if one is floating in one direction or the other. I'm looking at the apertures of their eyelids. And for example, if somebody is walking into my office and their right foot is turned in as they walk and their left foot is straight, I can tell you now with, I'm going to say 100% certainty that their right eye is going to have a tendency to turn in, or their right eye is turned in, and you might be able to notice that because we are one body. We are not a set of eyeballs that needs some glasses in the front of them. Um, and so eyeglasses, contact lenses are drugs. And when people go and have the surgery to cut their eyes to bring them back to what's called normal vision, that's something to consider before you do it, because we're a whole body. So if a surgeon, an ophthalmologist, were to cut your eye and change what's called your refractive error, which means the other end of that is what your visual acuity is. How clearly are you going to see the eye chart? That's not all there is. And so part of the course I teach, the 3-month course, is, there's more to vision than 2020. Um, how do we deepen our insight to improve our eyesight? What does that mean? You know, uh, I keep coming back to, and the overall gist of it, you will get this when you read my book, is what are we doing as a collective consciousness on the planet right now? Like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Am I really doing what I'm meant to do in this physical form? And to be honest, writing this book, because I was sitting so much, nearly blew my body up, because I have never in my life sat in front of a computer. I finally got a standing desk, like just before I wound up publishing the book. A light bulb went off. Like, what was I waiting for? I don't know. Um, but still, the stillness of being in front of a computer screen, whether it's a phone like this, you may see me. It looks maybe now as if I'm not gazing into the phone, because I'm not. I'm watching the leaves sway in the breeze and giving myself a chance for a vision rest break and to take a breath. And then I'll come back and gaze, in this case, down.
Yeah.
What are we doing? What are we modeling in every moment of our life? I abused myself, I admit it, a little bit while I was writing the book.
We have a little pause.
um, because I was sitting so much and I was so determined to get this book done. Although at one point I called up the publishing company and I said, I want my money back, because I paid a lot of money to publish this book. Nobody hired me to publish the book. Nobody paid me, something up front. I knew this book had to come through. And this is what I put my money towards, because it was worth it to me. Um, what are we doing, and how do we ascend to our highest calling easily, gracefully, with clear 2020 vision, without glasses or contact lenses or surgery, and with an integrated soma, body, mind, spirit, emotion, so that we can be our true selves all the time, instead of being all these different things that I mentioned are my labels, instead of compartmentalizing them. I'm the eye doctor here. I'm the vision therapist here. I'm the somatic movement educator here. I'm the eye doctor. What am I? I'm a mommy. I'm a mother. I'm a great great aunt. I'm a wife. No, no. I want to be an embodied self. One, not all the different parts. And we were educated from the moment we were born, and our mothers or whomever it was picked us up and strapped us in and carried us around the place in a vertical way.
Wow. Yes, that was so interesting to me that you had, that's what happens when you've worked so long and you're truly interested in the experience of the person that you are helping, right? But you're just the perceptiveness of those things, of seeing what is those indicators and then seeing what shows up in the testing and when you're in there. And I do find it fascinating because I am so much into archetypes, and that you had specific like personality traits or maybe thought patterns of cognitive responses for like myopia and oops, I forgot the other one because I'm
Myopia
um
and hyperopia and astigmatism, and I put a few more in
yeah,
there too.
yeah,
It's so doing the visual evaluation, I take time to watch the person's breathing and reactions when different lenses and prisms and colored filters are placed in front of the person. So it's not just how the person is reacting to the lens, but how the lens shifts the person's awareness. And lenses, prisms, colored filters, these are all drugs. I consider them drugs. They don't have um, the same kind of side effects necessarily, but if you're not careful and, the wrong thing is prescribed, it can be awfully powerful, you know. And eye doctors are often known to say, oh, if a person's
yeah. The
in
last time
pain,
I went in to get my eyes done, they were very specific. They said, "Oh, you'll need reading glasses and within the year or something like this," um, and that they had to up my prescription quite a bit because I had it'd been a while since I've been in as well, and I was just like, that sounds so much like a literal prescription, like a not a literal. It is obviously a literal prescription. I mean, like a drug prescription. I'm just like, so basically, I'm more dependent on glasses, and I'm going to be even more as a result of what you're giving me right now, or is that just part of? I didn't know if he was just talking about because I'm older or what, but I just was not okay with that. That you're a doctor, you're supposed to be helping me, and like now you're telling me that it's getting worse, but you're not telling me how to fix it or what to do about it,
right,
right?
right,
Like that's what I have a problem with a lot of Western medicine
right,
techniques.
right. And that's how we've been trained. We've been trained, whether or not you're a doctor or a therapist or a teacher or whatever it is that you are, we all came up through this educational system, which is, it's patriarchal. It's you get in the line, you stay in the line, you don't deviate. And this is the answer. And when you take the test and get an A on it, that's all you need to know. Well, guess what? The lines are not straight. We develop sporadically. And guess what? The more you deviate from the mainstream, the more you learn. It's not the easiest route, right? Those of us that are the luminaries, the visionaries, the forward thinkers, it's not the easiest route, but it is the wisdom route. It is the fun route. It is the route that allows you to be your curious self. And again, I ask the question, what are we doing here? And my one of my teachers, Brian Siddhartha Ingle, says, where is the health? It's inside. And are we taking the time? I mean, I could give you a more conventional answer to that eye doctor question, which is neurodevelopmental functional behavioral optometrists do some extra testing. They first rule out eye disease and they'll check your eyeglass prescription, but what they will do is they will give you a prescription that is more of a preventative prescription. And if they're really into natural eyesight improvement, they'll give you a set of lenses that will help you be able to play with the blur and strengthen the integrity of your entire visual system, brain, mind, spirit, and body. And just like I'm so excited, one day I'm going to have you do a testimonial for my website, enliveningconsciousness.com, Monifa, that you were inspired to start moving around just while you were reading the book. You picked that up and you kept doing it, and you probably won't forget it now forever because you'll understand that it can transfer to the computer screen. And I'm refraining right now, which I may not refrain from in a minute or two, from getting up and moving around, during this interview, because sometimes people say they get dizzy. Why do they get dizzy? Because they've got visual issues, right? But
Mhm.
neurodevelopmental functional behavioral optometrists do extra testing that looks at the person's capacity to converge or bring their eyes together as a team, to look at an object solidly. They do focusing testing. They do more tracking testing. There's all kinds of functional testing. I mean, if a parent brings a child in, I could spend 2 to 3 hours. First, I do the conventional testing. I rule out eye disease, but then there's a whole lot of other testing, because the optometrists that I hung around with when I was a young optometrist were those that were working with people in the field of psychology and education. Um, and there's a tremendous ophthalmologist who was thrown out of his field and his license taken away, Arnold Gazelle, who wrote an epic seminal book called Vision, Its Development in Infant and Child. And it's just like my Bible. It was written in like the 1940s, but unbelievable what he did. He had babies. We wouldn't do this research now probably, but he would take he would take babies like that were 16 months old, and he'd like strap them in a chair. I mean, it wasn't hurting them, but I don't know that they should have been strapped in a chair. And then he would start doing tracking activities, and he developed normative data for what babies ought to be able to do in terms of eye-hand coordination. When can they stack 3 blocks? When can they stack 5 blocks? When can they efficiently and effectively bring their forefinger towards their thumb? And what does that have to do with visual awareness? Everything. And so in a developmental visual evaluation, we look at all of those things before we prescribe. And the kind of eye doctoring in particular that I do may be good for business for opticians, um, briefly, while we're stepping the prescription down, but ultimately maybe not so good for business, right? And I believe, Monifa, what you said is 100% true, that the whole medical system I'm going to make it in present tense, the entire medical system is shrinking and collapsing because the model has not been preventative. It has been, as that doctor said to you, that should be malpractice. What right do I, as a doctor, have to tell you it will get worse? Well, guess what? As an eye doctor, and this is still taught, I'm 100% certain, we're given a chart. When a person hits 45, well, there's a B. Hi, B. When a person's 45, I don't know where it went, it disappeared. When a person's 45, they're going to need this prescription for reading. This is a person that's never had eyeglasses before. When they're 50, you're going to kick it up this much. And when they're 55, you're going to kick it up this much more. And when they're 60, up till 65, then it's going to plateau at that plus 250. No, no, no. That does not have to be the case, because you've got to go in now, Monifa, because you understand the academic that you are, the podcaster that you are, the event promoter and producer that you are, the whatever voice teacher that you are, that you're going to have to start to move a little bit more. This is your first lesson, Monifa. You got it from reading the book. It's a huge lesson. It's
Yeah,
huge. And it's simple, and it's a remembering of who we are meant to be.
beautiful. Absolutely.
So you also talk in the book, Elisa, about resilience, which, as I already said, I'm kind of a aficionado on how we can flip the script on stress. And I want everyone to recognize how fundamentally resilient we are, but also that resilience grows from everything that we've survived. right? And people have this fear of change, and we get really stuck in patterns and everything. So many light bulb moments again, but thinking about how we're restricted in chairs and bouncers and desks, and we don't get to move and understand everything we're capable of. What is your perspective on resilience, how we can cultivate it, how we're denying ourselves or falling short when we don't have this awareness?
So I kind of want to um, flip the question a little bit, because I want to I want to say that it's our birthright to move and to rise to our full potential. And resilience is built into our DNA until it's schooled and beaten out of us. And the slave mentality, no matter who you are and what your ethnic or socioeconomic background is, it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic in our culture. We have been punished for free thinking. We have been punished for our adaptability. We have been rewarded for our sedentary, following in the straight line behavior. And so, how can we look at everything that we're doing and being and move more with it? I think it's as simple as that. The negative aspects of what our culture has created for us are apparent everywhere. Just look right, left, up, and down if you're able to. If your eyeballs are flexible enough and your head and neck and body are flexible, you don't have to look very far. Look, my husband and I were at the vegan Summerfest at the University of Pittsburgh in Johnstown this past weekend. It's the largest vegan educational event on the planet. And it's been going, it was the 50th anniversary this year. And while we were there, we live in southwestern Pennsylvania. Is this ringing a bell? The western part of Pennsylvania. What happened a few days, about a half hour from where I live? The news came through, even though we were in this area that was a total bubble. And I don't watch the news. We got a text message from our daughter, who was at a pool near our house, because she overheard a conversation that a couple of women were having. One of the people was at this rally on the Butler Fairgrounds. So we got the information before it came out in the news from our daughter. So if you don't believe that we're going to thrive in this moment and in the next 5 years and in the next rest of our lives, what I'm going to say is the evil forces that be have something coming, because we don't need the internet. We don't need any of it, because we are the supreme, energetic, embodied beings. Genius. That's all we need. And we are connected, and we don't need any of it, because we've got it already. We have it head and shoulders above AI. We we have to be wise. We have to pay attention. We have to know what's out there. I know that Amazon is out there. I know now more than ever that Amazon is where people go to buy everything all the time. Well, guess what, my friends? My book is not on Amazon on purpose. You can only get my book from Balboa Press. I have been told by more than a dozen people I am crazy for not putting my book on Amazon. And I'm pondering the idea. But I have learned so many lessons from not having my book on Amazon that I could spend the next 5 hours talking about them. Who would have thunk it? I did this by mistake. It has to do with the printing of my book. I'm waiting for 1,500 more books to be printed. And as I'm waiting, I'm certainly not going to put it on Amazon. And guess what? My book became a bestseller through Balboa Press, my publishing company. Who would have thought? I only published the book in February of this year and it's a bestseller? Are you kidding me? Like, you, when you step into your resilience and you do things in a way that you wouldn't expect yourself to do, you surprise yourself, God's spirit source starts to flow through you in ways that you just can't even dream of. And why even belabor the other stuff, the negative stuff that's going on? And who knows if what we're hearing in the mainstream 3D news is really the truth or not? I don't believe most of it now. And I used to be addicted to the news. I was born in Washington, D.C. I grew up in a suburb of Washington, D.C. The Washington Post was our local newspaper, you know? But I've learned now, living in southwestern PA, that community, one-on-one connection and community collaboration is what's really important in life. The symbiosis, the synchronicity, just being open to that. And that is what natural eyesight improvement is about. That is what healing, wellness, and health is about. That is what decreasing stress is about. Coming back into your parasympathetic or relaxing part of your nervous system, right? That's what it seems like, you're both doing and modeling in your work.
Well, yeah, there's just so many tie-ins because everything's connected. And so it does happen that we continuously move into these conversations of somatic environment, community, um, what it looks like to be vision oriented, vision and a visionary, right? And allowing and just from your description of even like that developmental process of using our eyes to, oh, that's what we want, and the way we think of as visionary, and how that leads us, and that the vision leads, right? Who said that quote? Pain pain pushes pain pushes until vision pulls. And it's always been a profound statement to me, but in this context, I think it's very apropos.
I'm curious about who said that because what I have found through the developmental movement work with Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, one of my dear teachers, Lisa Clark, Mark Taylor, some others of my teachers, now Eleanor Criswell Hanna and the late Thomas Hanna, is that the yield underneath the push is equally important. And then we reach and pull, right? And you see this in early childhood development. We're yielding. You can do it now. Can you yield into the chair you're sitting in? Or if you're standing and walking while listening to this podcast, book interview, can you yield the soles of your feet into the earth before you push and then reach out into space? What does that what does that do? How does that shift your embodied awareness, right?
Mm.
Pulling is one quarter of it. Pulling, you know, it's uncomfortable. If you go walk into a room and somebody walks over to you and they're immediately trying to pull you over to them, you don't want to go over there. You want to go, leave me alone. I'm going to go over there, because they weren't embodied. They weren't aware of themselves so that they could make space for you, you know?
Yes, that's so true. There's always that element of beingness that has been left out of so much of the conversation, and that like yielding, I think, is so much of that beingness, of that experience. Yeah.
When my book went through the early edits, I had a lot of different punctuation and capitalization. My editor kind of convinced me to take out most of this, what I think of as creative capitalization, because I did finally start to understand. She's also kind of a book writing coach. I wanted her to be my ghostwriter. She refused, but I did start to understand that there is a flow when you read. And if I was kept playing with all this capitalization, it wouldn't flow as easily. But in several cases, you'll note that I put capital B, capital E, and then small ing for the word being, being. And then I settled on ElisaBe as a short way to say my name, because my middle name is Beth. My married name is Beck. And so, and then there's the double, triple entendre B. I'm ElisaBe. B. I'm telling myself. I'm telling the air, the sky, the earth, the community, the cosmos. Let's be. Let's just be. Can we be? Yeah. And then
Yeah,
there's the buzzing bee, too, that just visited us during this interview.
absolutely.
So one more thing. I'm sorry. Okay. One more thing that I noticed as I was reading the book, Elisa, is you're sharing your story, your path, and you share that some of the remembering actually kind of unfolded for you as you were writing the book. And as we've already kind of touched on, we've all had varied stories and had different starts and changes in direction. And I truly believe that until we have the opportunity to look back in hindsight, that's when it all makes sense. And you share your story of the work that you did in your undergraduate work. And then even your master's thesis seems so far sighted. Here I go again. I just can't help myself. The best puns are unintentional. And then you come into your school and study of optometry, and the way that it all knits together to now encompass your total practice, I think is so extraordinary. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that on its way through. Did you ever feel discouraged or frustrated? And then looking back, kind of predestined in how they all knit together?
I've I've come to a place now, to the understanding that this Earth School, we chose to be here, and it's not an easy school. But we chose it. We picked it. We decided that this was our school. And I've recognized, and it was through the writing of this book, totally, that everything that I've done up to this point was meant to happen in the way that it happened, so that I could be the story weaver and help others to understand that their story is the same as mine, not in the content, but in the formation of who they are becoming and who they've become. Because what happened was, I think it was about January of 2022, I want to say, or 2021. I don't remember. Those years are kind of a blur. But I couldn't figure out how to weave the whole book together. Um, and I got this download about, I remembered this job I had while I was in college at the Insect Pathology Laboratory in Beltsville, Maryland, part of the United States Department of Agriculture, when I was working with this bacteria, and that it had a toxic crystal in it. There's the bee. I think they're creating a nest over there. Maybe they're hornets. Okay, let's not let my peripheral vision distract me. This rod-shaped bacteria has a crystal inside of it that is toxic to caterpillars, that wreak havoc on crops. And hence that's why the USDA was researching, and these 3 PhDs that I worked with at the time. Fast forward that to 2021 or 2022, that was 19. I graduated from the University of Maryland in 1982. So that was about 1980, 1981. Somehow this job came back to my mind, and I thought, what was I? Oh, why is this coming to mind? And then I realized, oh boy, this has everything to do with what's going on right now in these years. And most people don't understand it. And so this is a little bit of an edgy part of the conversation that I'm having right now. And I'm going to leave it with the um, mystery of that so that you read my nature section of the book. And it goes into more detail of why this lab that I worked in that became a precursor to what is now called, I'm sure you've heard of, I hope you've heard of, something called GMOs, right? And the whole GMO story. And what does that have to do with what went on in the past 4 years in our food system? And what does that have to do with us being fully human? And so, dear ones, dear readers, dear listeners, read between the lines. And then, if you're interested in pursuing further how to rise to your potential and how to detoxify on a continuous basis, because that's all what we all need to be doing right now, socially, emotionally, spiritually, physically. We have to do that. That's our job right now because we've chosen to incarnate on the planet in these particular moments. It's intense on some levels and layers out there. So pay attention. Pay attention. And I'm offering, in my book, I offer tips and tools. I will read, with your permission, I'll read a short excerpt from the end of the book, the part of the book that I call the outtakes, okay? Because I feel myself getting a little agitated when I talk about the nature section of my book. I don't want to give too much of it away, right? At least not publicly. Because the deep underlying meaning of what I've written this book about is in my coursework when I'm working with just a few people at a time for very good reason. My book really ends on page 296. That's really where the book ends. It's where my editor told me to cut the rest of the book out. And then I couldn't. I couldn't do it because I needed to put in more. And so here's some of the more that I put in. Peace with community. This is on page 302 if you want to follow me. Peace with community through tikkun olam and giving back to community by sharing all our gifts and inner explorations with the world. A few words of gratitude, and I'll start out with gratitude to both of you for this inaugural event that we're celebrating today with a birthday party and so many, beautiful breezes and greenery and two delightful interviewers. A few words of gratitude. That's not in my book, that little phrase, but a few words of gratitude for spirit, source, God, and the natural world. Thank you for helping me to teach others all I have been gifted to learn. And if you're not yet teaching, know that your existence, whoever you are, is a teaching. Your beingness is a teaching. That's also not in here. So I'm putting in some anecdotal things. Thank you, Spirit, for bringing me to this beautiful moment and for providing me with the understanding of amazing food. Thank you, soil, for your stored vitamins and minerals and your natural biodynamic immune system you share with the plants that spring forth from you. Thank you, soil of the earth, for not giving up on us as we redo, reimagine, reinvent, those are two extra words, ourselves through you. This is the danger of reading your own book. You want to add and edit. Thank you, rain, for lubricating the earth and transferring her nutrients up the stems of plants to reach inside of them through their xylem and phloem. Thank you for reaching my spirit through these waters and for loosening the stickiness of my lymph and cells to create flow. Thank you, sun, for shining on my back right now, for bright light, for the trees to grow, for warming my soul, for lighting me up, and for right now creating the sweat that's helping me to detoxify. Again, that's not in here. Thank you, moon and stars, for lighting up the night sky and creating the monthly and ethereal patterns of the tides and the celestial seasons. And I go on here, but the point is, thank you, living in gratitude and allowing the grace of the miraculousness of ourselves to come through. And I know you two got it in my book. And tell everybody you know about my book. Tell everybody that they need the book. They need to walk around with it and put it under their pillow and open it to anywhere at any time, and just they'll find something fun to play with. And if they didn't find it on that page, just flip a little further or just look at one of the pictures, you know.
It is so lyrical and it does inspire movement. It comes through the pages, your love of dance, of so many things. I mean, this ode of gratitude that you just shared, it permeates your entire book, and it's such a gift.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, it has been an absolute honor to read the book and to hear from you and your insights behind it in this interview, like, because obviously there's so many connective synchronicities and capabilities of our understanding of being human that allows us to be more human through this work. And so I'm so excited. Can you tell us a bit more about your course and where we can find it?
Yes, and I'm just inspired. A little bit of spoken word poetry is coming through, because as I was listening to you wrap up, I was chewing my water. You might remember me mentioning chewing our water in the book.
I was going to bring it up.
And I licked my lips and tasted the salt. I tasted the salt of my inner ocean coming through the pores of my skin. I tasted the ocean on me, in me, and through me. And yes, now I'll get back to business. My book. My book, Enlivening Consciousness, Deepening Your Journey Through Vision, Movement, Nutrition, Nature, and Spirit, is available through Balboa Press. I happen to be holding a hard, I can't really see very much here because it's a microscopic screen. Balboa Press, but I'm going to do some focusing now for you.
It's
Balboa
clear on our
Press,
end.
if you Google Balboa Press and my full doctor author name, which is Elisa Haransky-Beck, and put the book title Enlivening Consciousness in, it's going to come up on the bestseller list. You can also find the link, I believe, on the book page of my website, enliveningconsciousness.com. And if you've made it this long in the interview, you are absolutely a prime candidate for my course that's coming up in fall of 2024. It's October, November, and December. 3 2-hour classes, per month. 3 2-hour live classes per month. It also includes my Embody Vision somatic yoga class on Wednesday mornings live from 10:30 to 11:30 Eastern. I will be recording all of the classes, so if you're in a different time zone, I'm there's a dear woman from Japan who is on the verge of signing up. She said, "I'm sorry, I can't do it because it's in the middle of my night." And I said, "No worries. It will be recorded and you will get 99.9% of the energetic downloading and community advantage by listening to the recordings. And I'll be doing some for that part of the world live each month as well. But all of that is included. It also includes a one-on-one with me at the beginning of the course before the formal group classes begin, and a one-on-one at the end. And I do ask, and I'm just going to say this out loud here, I usually wait a little while until after a person has decided to take the course, to participate. I ask that you've had an eye exam within the previous year. Before you step into my course, I will look over your findings. I'll ask that you share the findings, what's called the subjective exam and the objective exam. We need to rule out eye disease, but if you do have an eye disease, I need to be sure that you're being followed by a professional eye care person, because although I am a professionally licensed eye doctor, I'm not your eye doctor during these 3 months. So again, thank you both so very much. I honor you. I love the work that you're both doing. I'm so happy to be in this now community of 3 that I know we're busy expanding by the millisecond. So just thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all around.
Of course, of course. And we find that on the Enlivening Consciousness website.
Enliveningconsciousness.com/book is my book page where the ordering link ought to be, I hope. If it's not, I'll go take care
Yeah,
of that.
that's where we ordered it. And then the course, is that on the
And
same page?
the course details right now are on my most recent blog post. So that's enliveningconsciousness.com/blog, BLOG. And if you go there, you'll get the dates. You can save the dates and times. And again, if you're not able to come to all of the classes live, the live classes, which amounts to 3 hours a week, the live things, maybe you can only make 1 hour a week. That's fantastic. Maybe you can make 2 of the 3 hours. That's fantastic. Maybe you can make all 3. That's even better. Maybe you cannot make any of it because you're my dear friend in Japan and colleague, movement colleague. I'm thinking she's going to be there too. So 3 of the 12 slots that I'm opening for this course are filled. I haven't even opened the registration yet, but if you have a solid intention and you know you're like being drawn and you need to take this course, because who knows when I'm going to offer it again. I haven't offered it since 2020, 2021 when I first met Monifa. Um, I'm not sure what the world is going to be after December. I may offer it again January, February, March of 25. I'm just not sure. Um, but if you have an intention and you really want the extra details about cost and that sort of thing, reach out to me directly, either through my website, I'm on the other end of it, through one of my multitude of Facebook pages. Please like and share. I have many Facebook pages. Again, I was advised to condense it into one. That's not me. So I'm Enlivening Consciousness on Facebook. I'm Dr. ElisaBe Haransky-Beck on Facebook. I'm ElisaBe on Facebook. I'm Vegan Spirituality Southwest PA on Facebook. I'm Sustainable Monroeville on Facebook. I'm Transition Pittsburgh on Facebook. Yes, I manage all of those Facebook pages. I'm not as active on all of them as some of the others. You can pick and choose. You can see different aspects of my beingness when you play with those. But I would be thrilled if you would even, you know, start commenting on one of them. That would be awesome. And I'm on Instagram as Embody Vision, and I'm also on LinkedIn as, I'm not sure what my name is, but it's some version of my full name on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. Thank you, Elisa.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for your time and for you being our inaugural author interview for Verve and Vision. As we have been saying throughout this year, Monifa and I started recording, live streaming episodes and choosing books in January. We thought we knew which ones were going to come in which order, and it had other plans for us, and it was always in time and on time, as is this one. And I've been talking with friends about this already. I can't wait to share this episode, and I can't wait to be able to discuss this book with them because it is so rich. Thank you.
If I'm given a proper link, I will be more than happy to share this inaugural episode and brag about it on every place that I'm on social media. So thank you again and again. I'm happy to cross-pollinate. You understand the reference from the book. The mycelial connections are very strong here, and I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.